A little over a decade ago, the idea sounded ridiculous. Apple was the king of technology, the most valuable company on earth, the company that put a supercomputer in billions of pockets, the company that turned products into status symbols, the company everyone thought was untouchable. And then something happened that almost nobody saw coming. A company most people associated with video games quietly began building the infrastructure for a new technological revolution. A revolution so powerful that it would eventually make Apple look like it was playing a completely different game. Today, Nvidia is worth more than Apple. But this isn't just a story about stock prices. It's a story about ambition, timing, risk, and one of the most important business decisions ever made. Because the truth is, Nvidia didn't beat Apple by building a better phone. It beat Apple by becoming something far more valuable. And what happened next changed the entire world. The story begins in 1993. A young engineer named Jensen Huang sat in a small restaurant with two friends. The technology world looked completely different back then. No smartphones, no social media, no artificial intelligence race, no trillion-dollar tech giants. Just a handful of dreamers trying to predict the future. Most startups died. Most ideas failed. Most investors lost money. But Huang believed something strange. He believed computers would eventually need enormous amounts of visual processing power. It sounded like a niche problem, a boring problem, certainly not the foundation of a future empire. Yet he was willing to risk everything on that belief. And that single bet would eventually shake Silicon Valley to its core. At first, Nvidia's journey was brutal. Money disappeared quickly, deadlines were missed, products failed, competitors attacked from every direction. The company nearly ran out of cash. Inside the offices, fear was growing. Employees knew one bad quarter could end everything. Investors were nervous. The pressure was relentless. Every day felt like survival. But the real problem was just beginning. In the late 1990s, the gaming industry exploded. Suddenly, millions of players wanted realistic graphics. They wanted faster action, more detail, more immersion. The demand seemed endless. And Nvidia happened to build exactly what those gamers needed: graphics processing units, GPUs. The company became famous among gamers. Its chips powered incredible virtual worlds. Revenue grew, confidence returned, Wall Street started paying attention. It looked like Nvidia had finally found its destiny. But that wasn't the destiny Jensen Huang was chasing, not even close. Because while everyone else saw gaming chips, Huang saw something much bigger, something almost nobody understood, something hidden in plain sight. And this single insight changed everything. As Nvidia became successful, another company was dominating the world: Apple. Led by the legendary Steve Jobs, Apple transformed technology into art. The iPod changed music. The iPhone changed communication. The iPad created entirely new markets. Consumers lined up for hours to buy Apple products. Investors couldn't believe the numbers. Apple became a money-printing machine. Every launch felt like a global event. Every quarter seemed stronger than the last. The company wasn't just winning, it was rewriting business history. And compared to Apple, Nvidia looked tiny, almost insignificant. Nobody imagined the balance of power would ever change. But beneath the surface, something strange was happening. Researchers began experimenting with Nvidia's chips, not for gaming, not for entertainment, for computation. Scientists discovered GPUs could solve certain problems dramatically faster than traditional computer processors. At first, it seemed like an interesting technical detail, nothing more. But hidden inside that discovery was a multi-trillion-dollar opportunity, and almost nobody realized it. The world kept celebrating smartphones. The world kept talking about apps. The world kept obsessing over consumer gadgets. Meanwhile, Nvidia was quietly building tools for researchers, developers, scientists, engineers. The company launched CUDA. To most people, the announcement meant nothing. No headlines, no massive excitement, no viral product launch. But CUDA allowed developers to unlock the true power of Nvidia's hardware. It created an ecosystem, a moat, a foundation. The kind of foundation competitors would struggle to copy years later. This single decision changed everything. Then came artificial intelligence. At first, AI seemed like science fiction. Interesting, exciting, but distant. Many executives dismissed it. Many investors underestimated it. Many companies failed to prepare. But researchers working on neural networks kept reaching the same conclusion. Training advanced AI systems required enormous computing power, and the best tools available happened to come from Nvidia. What happened next shocked everyone. As AI models became larger, demand for Nvidia chips exploded. Universities wanted them, startups wanted them, governments wanted them, cloud companies wanted them. Everyone suddenly needed more computing power, much more. The demand wasn't growing, it was detonating. And Nvidia sat directly in the center of the explosion. Meanwhile, Apple continued executing brilliantly. Its products remained exceptional. Its ecosystem remained powerful. Its profits remained enormous. But Apple's business depended heavily on consumers. Consumers upgrade phones. Consumers buy devices. Consumers spend money. Nvidia was becoming something entirely different. It wasn't selling gadgets. It was selling the picks and shovels during a gold rush. And history has shown that the people selling the tools often become richer than the miners themselves. The AI race accelerated. Companies began spending billions, then tens of billions, then hundreds of billions. Fear spread across corporate boardrooms. Executives worried about being left behind. Investors worried about missing the next revolution. Governments worried about national competitiveness. Every major organization wanted a seat at the AI table, and nearly every road led back to Nvidia. But nobody could have predicted how extreme things would become. Demand became so intense that customers fought for access. Wait lists formed. Supply became precious. Entire data centers were designed around Nvidia hardware. Some companies were willing to pay almost anything because the alternative was falling behind. The atmosphere felt less like technology and more like an arms race, a global race powered by silicon. And Nvidia was supplying the ammunition. As revenue surged, Wall Street entered a frenzy. Quarter after quarter, Nvidia reported numbers that seemed almost impossible. Analysts revised forecasts upward, then upward again, then upward again. Each report created new shockwaves. Each earnings announcement generated fresh disbelief. Investors who once ignored the company suddenly couldn't stop talking about it. The stock soared. The market value exploded. The world began asking a question that once sounded absurd. Could Nvidia actually become more powerful than Apple? The answer was approaching faster than anyone expected. But hidden warning signs were emerging. Every great rise creates new risks. Every empire faces pressure. Every success attracts challenges. The bigger Nvidia became, the bigger the target on its back. Competitors invested billions. Governments examined supply chains. Customers worried about dependence. Investors worried about expectations becoming impossible to meet. Because when a company becomes the center of a global technological revolution, perfection is no longer enough. The market expects miracles, and miracles are difficult to deliver forever. The pressure inside Nvidia grew immense. One disappointing quarter could trigger panic. One technological mistake could change everything. One competitor breakthrough could rewrite the story. The stakes became enormous. Yet, Jensen Huang continued pushing forward. The company invested aggressively, expanded aggressively, innovated aggressively, because standing still was no longer an option. The AI race had become too important. Then came the moment that symbolized the changing era. For years, Apple represented the future. The company was the ultimate measure of technological success. Its dominance seemed permanent, its influence seemed limitless. But markets don't reward yesterday's victories, they reward tomorrow's opportunities. And investors increasingly believed the future belonged to artificial intelligence, not smartphones, not consumer electronics, AI. That shift in belief changed everything. Suddenly, Nvidia wasn't being valued as a chip company. It was being valued as the infrastructure layer of the next industrial revolution. The difference was enormous. One narrative creates billions, the other creates trillions, and the market responded accordingly. When Nvidia's valuations surged past Apple's, it wasn't simply about money. It was symbolic. It represented a transfer of power, a shift in priorities, a glimpse into where technology was heading next. For decades, the biggest winners built products people loved. Now the biggest winner was building the foundation that powered everyone else's products. And that's a very different kind of power. Apple's strength came from controlling the customer experience. Nvidia's strength came from controlling the engine underneath the future. One company owned devices, the other increasingly owned capability. One sold products, the other sold possibility. And possibility can become incredibly expensive. The most fascinating part of this story is that Nvidia didn't suddenly get lucky. The company spent decades preparing for a moment nobody knew would arrive. Years of research, years of investment, years of uncertainty, years of building technology that seemed ahead of its time. When AI exploded, Nvidia looked prepared because it had already done the hard work long before anyone was paying attention. That's the part many people miss. The overnight success took decades. And perhaps that's the greatest lesson hidden inside this story. Most people chase obvious opportunities. Most businesses follow trends. Most investors react after the excitement begins. But extraordinary outcomes often belong to those willing to prepare before the opportunity becomes visible. When Nvidia built its ecosystem, few cared. When it invested in AI infrastructure, few understood. When it developed CUDA, few noticed. Those decisions didn't create headlines, they created leverage. And leverage eventually changed the balance of power in the technology world. Today, Apple remains one of the greatest companies ever built. Its influence is undeniable. Its achievements are historic. But Nvidia revealed something deeper about how empires rise. The world changes. Technology evolves. Power shifts, and the companies that dominate one era are not guaranteed to dominate the next. Because every revolution creates new winners, the companies that survive are not always the biggest. They are often the ones preparing for a future nobody else can see. Years ago, Nvidia was just a graphics company serving gamers. Today, it sits at the center of one of the most important technological transformations in history. Not because it predicted every detail, not because it avoided every mistake, but because it made a series of difficult bets when the outcome was uncertain. And that's the lesson worth remembering. The greatest opportunities rarely look obvious in the beginning. They often look risky, confusing, even foolish. The crowd usually notices only after the rewards become impossible to ignore. By then, the real advantage is already gone. And somewhere, right now, another company is quietly building for a future the rest of the world still can't see, just as Nvidia once did. The question is whether anyone is paying attention.